probably ate something today. I had breakfast and nothing else. So.
Yeah, I thought better that drive before we get my son broke on half an hour wait. So I grabbed leftovers from last night, brought that in the car, kind of didn't eat most of it, and then drank a protein shaker before I went.
I should have probably had something, but I'm going like no. I'm gonna go shake some babies and kiss some babies.
Chicken next to her.
Hey folks, if you could just take your seats. Wow. All right, awesome. Good evening. Welcome to the fourth and final event in Muncie Resists 2026 primary series. My name is Sarah Vitale, and I am the chair of Muncie Resists. We are a 350-member strong, grassroots, indivisible organization founded in 2017 and dedicated to promoting a more inclusive, equitable, and sustainable future for all people. On the screen above me, you can see some of our upcoming events. I know that we're still reeling from No Kings 3. I know, yeah. What a great event here in town and in so many other places. There were so many more, and so really energizing. But even though we're still reeling from that and we're still energetic, we need to mark our calendars. So make sure to mark your calendars in red for May Day. So not only is May Day an international distress call, but it is also International Workers' Day. And as we all know, the working class is in crisis. That's because for too long, the billionaires we have made wealthy and who own our communications platforms and own our news sources, who can buy and sell elections with dark money and super PACs, and who are risking our futures and the futures of the next generation in their zeal for AI and tech advancement. For too long, they have pitted us against one another. They have made working Americans believe that the problem, the reason they struggle to pay for groceries, schools in their towns are failing, is the influx of immigrants over the border, or Black people moving into their neighborhoods. They have distracted us by selling difference as danger, and they have led us to believe that our world cannot be otherwise. We know it can. We know it can. We know that billionaires are not inevitable. We know that the laws of the market don't function like the laws of gravity. And this is not a new story. This has happened since the beginning of the workers' movement. In the past, workers have seen past this manipulation and have fought alongside one another, and they will again, because there is no other option. And if you think that you are not a member of the working class because you sit at a desk where you work, or your job required you to get a college degree, I ask you to think again. We, plumbers, teachers, electricians, factory workers, day laborers, farmers, nurses, truck drivers, professors, pastors, welders, dental hygienists, and sales associates. We have far more in common with one another than we do with the 1%. And this is the moment for us to realize that. So plans are in the works for actions across the country on May 1st, and I look forward to standing in solidarity with each of you as we demand a country that makes good on its founding promises. This is the last of the 4 primary panels, so I thought that I might just use my platform a little bit more than I had in the first few, right? Okay, off the soapbox. Our primary series this year has been organized by our Electoral Advocacy Committee with Melinda Messinio, Peggy Lewis, and Jennifer Rice Snow at the helm. Will you guys wave? All right, I think that Jen is out at the table. I'd also like to thank all of the volunteers here tonight, as well as our endorsement team who will be meeting tomorrow. Special thanks to the Unitarian Universalist Church for this amazing space. So round of applause for that. And a big thanks to Rick Dwenger for doing the sound for us for these 4 events. The plan for this evening. Candidates will each have 2 minutes to introduce themselves. Then I will ask them your questions. You've all received note cards, and if you raise your hand, a Muncie Resist volunteer will bring you more. You may submit questions throughout the panel. Just raise it in the air and a volunteer will come to collect it. Good questions are civil. They address the qualifications or experience of the candidate, or they focus on policy. They are specific, typically eliciting a yes or no response and a follow-up explanation. Questions may be asked of individual candidates or candidates for a specific race, but other candidates will also have the opportunity to speak on the topic afterwards. If you reference a fact or a statistic in your question, please cite a reputable source that one of our volunteers can check quickly. Questions will be eliminated if they are demeaning or contain uncited facts or statistics. The volunteers consolidate and review the questions and they bring them to me. I ask them in order of the popularity of the topic. I may also ask follow-up questions. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to each question, and then if one of you is addressed directly by another one of you, that addressed person may have 30 seconds to respond. And without any further delay, I'm going to invite our candidates to introduce themselves, starting with Steve.
All right, thank you guys for having me. My name is Steve Avit. I will be on the ballot as Steve Avitabile Avit because this is my first thing in politics, and I decided, hey, let's make things simple. My last name is long, it's confusing, it's a mouthful, it doesn't fit on a sign very well. I'm going to shorten it to Avit. So I did that. Back in November, I applied, changed my name, did it about a week ago. Did it the day that mail-in ballots got mailed out. Great timing. So I couldn't legally go on the ballot since that wasn't legally my name yet. So in my effort to make something simpler, my first thing to do in politics was to make it much more complicated. So there's some irony there. Well, it'd be more ironic, I guess, if I was running on the other team than this one. But so that's just kind of the funny little thing is how I'm on the ballot that way. At the end of the day, I live in Carmel. I'm a dad. My kids go to Carmel schools. My wife and I are healthcare providers. She's a nurse. I'm a chiropractor. I just got fed up with the way this country is being run, kind of the way the rest of you guys are fed up, and just got angry enough to say to heck with it. I'm going to try to take a shot at this and run. So that's what I'm here doing. I am sick of the billionaire class getting away with murder. They have rewritten all the rules in their favor, and my philosophy is we make up 99% of the population. Let's rewrite the rules in our favor, and let's tax the billionaires for a change so that we finally get a break. So that's it. That's really what I'm all about is affordability and just really taking down that top 1%. So thank you.
I'm Jackson Franklin. I'm a Muncie native, proud Muncie Resists member. I'm an Army combat medic. I've deployed overseas, been serving in the Indiana Army National Guard for 7 years now. And I'm a paramedic, worked on the ambulance. And, you know, I've been all across this district. We've been campaigning for more than a year and a half. We're getting close to that, at least. But that's because we're a grassroots campaign. Unlike some others, we will never take any corporate PAC money, no APAC money. We are unapologetically fighting for the working class, not the donor class. We stand with workers, we stand with women, trans people, immigrants, veterans, and we are fighting for human rights across the board. Many decades ago, Muncie was known as Middletown America because corporations and the government would do polls here because Muncie reflected the larger interest of the nation. The demographics were just right. Well, if you want to know what the nation is thinking, I think Trump and the rest of these pollsters should take another look here at Muncie, Indiana, and take a look at the No Kings protests. Make some noise. Who's here has some No Kings? Yeah. I know I have the sunburn to prove it. But yes, let's look here in Muncie, Indiana, and you'll see that the political revolution is alive and well, and we are fighting back against this regime. And we are standing up and saying no more kings, no more tyrants, and yes, no more billionaires. Most of our problems are not left versus right, but top versus down. We must organize a grassroots coalition and challenge the people in power. Yep. It's as John Lewis once said, the power of the people is greater than the people in power. It's up to us to organize that power. Thank you very much.
Test? Is it on? Yes. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Tara Nelson. I'm running for Congress because we're at a very historical time in our country. In the office right now, we have a felon, a war criminal, and a pedophile as our leader. And Congress isn't doing their job to get him out of office. And that's why I'm running. I want you to know that I'm a guaranteed vote to get President Trump out of office. I will vote to impeach him every time it comes up. He needs to be out. I have 20 years of experience in corporate leadership and government leadership. I come from the private sector mostly. I've worked in technology for the past 20 years. I've worked in global pharmaceuticals. I've worked on global system implementations. I have also worked in healthcare in Indiana and California and in Phoenix. I've also worked at the state of Indiana. I've worked at Department of Revenue, where I worked on the tax amnesty program for 2015, which generated $200 million for the state of Indiana. And I also worked at the Department of Child Services, working closely with the federal government to get 50% funding to support our system. So I do have a lot of government experience as well. And more recently, I'm working in the finance industry, and I know I can bring my leadership experience to Washington. Additionally, I'm a mother. I haven't always been successful. At 19, I was a single mom, and it took me 3 years to get child support. I also had to work 2 jobs during that time. And we qualified for food stamps on 1 month, and that month meant everything to us. So I understand what it's like to struggle as well. And I know a lot of American families are struggling right now to make ends meet with the cost of gas, the cost of food, and I will fight to represent everyone. Thank you. Additionally, why I'm running, in addition to get Donald Trump out of office, I really want to work on immigration reform and also healthcare reform. I do support universal healthcare, and I am really upset at what's happening with immigration right now. We have ICE just terrorizing citizens, killing citizens, and we need immigration reform immediately. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Blythe Potter. I am seeking the Democratic Party nomination for Secretary of State. I'm a mom, I'm a veteran, I'm a small business owner, and I'm running for Secretary of State because Indiana and our party need a new direction. We are nearly dead last when it comes to funding our schools, our civic rights, keeping those intact, and we're nearly dead last in the country for a voter turnout, and that seems like a simple marketing problem because we really don't share information about elections. So what I want to do with the office is work with the clerks to make sure we have a ballot book, something that's not just digital, but also a physical book for those in the state who don't have access to internet. We still have about 10% of the population, which is over 600,000 people with no internet access. So I want it to be comprehensive, not just name, party, what they're running for, like you can currently see online. I want it to have information from each candidate, so everyone can put 500 to 700 characters of information that's nonpartisan and impartial, so you all have access to some information about what we want to do as candidates without having to be bombarded with flyers, without having to research 70 different people. We also need to modernize the systems. The NBIS website still looks the same as it did in 2018 when I got my LLC. I want to make sure it's comprehensive so people have the tools that they need once they've gotten their organizational paperwork to be set up for success. The campaign finance portal was done in '97. There's a lot of it that needs to be overhauled. I've got 30 years of customer service experience, over 20 years of administrative experience. I've run a small business for the last 8 years, and I really think I can do a great job in this thing. Thank you.
So Blythe, some of the questions are going to be more geared towards the congressional candidates, but on any of them you can weigh in, or otherwise just say pass when it comes to you. And we're going to start each question with the next person in the row. So this question we'll start with Jackson. What is your position on the SAVE Act?
So yes, the SAVE Act right now is actually called the Save America Act. Is trying to disenfranchise women and trans people from voting or registering to vote. Right now it's held up in the Senate. I would be a guaranteed no vote to any further, legislation of that. But we need to make sure we tackle the root cause so the Republicans can't try to rig our democracy again. They're scared of a blue wave. But what we can do to fight back against that, I'm very passionate about automatic voter registration, making Election Day a national holiday, and making it easier, not harder, for our people to vote. We should also have ranked choice voting, having healthy third parties. But yes, we need to fight back against this. They're scared of this blue wave that's coming. We need to make it too big to rig and fight back against the fascist.
Tara.
Yes, so I would also vote against the SAVE Act. I think it is clearly a way to disenfranchise women's voting rights. They know women are 52% of the population, so what better way to go after married women? We know that's what they're targeting, and I absolutely do not support this, and I think voting should be easier and accessible to everyone. It's really a no-brainer.
So the Secretary of State can't do anything about the SAVE Act, but the Secretary of State can inform the public about things that might affect them as far as legislation is concerned. And they both mentioned making voting access easier. So I'd really like to work with the state legislature. One, I'd like to get rid of the convention, so you can all vote on your Secretary of State candidate in the primary. I'd also like to get rid of straight ticket voting, and then also ballot initiatives, so that if Indiana voters want to have automatic voter registration, you all get to vote for that. If Indiana voters want to have automatic opt-in absentee ballots, y'all get to vote for that. So we could work together to make sure Indiana has access to that.
And I am also very much against the SAVE Act. Whenever they first started putting information out about that, I remember seeing something on TV about it with my wife and just kind of seeing through her eyes what that impact would have, just knowing what that would mean to a woman. And then, so I kind of felt that through her. And then, everything hits you more when it's personal. Just even with me changing my name, I'm like, oh, wow. If I were in this position, I would be in this position now as well. I'd have to go improve my identity, So it's just a bad piece of legislation. I'm 100% against it. And then like everybody else, I am for expanding the options here of voting because the voting hours are just not that great. You need a couple of weeks to go vote because if you're a nurse and you work in a hospital, you're not going to make it in to vote on voting day if you work a 12-hour shift.
Okay, I love all the clapping. But if we do clapping after every question, it's just going to be a really long night. But, if that's how you guys want to roll, like if that's how it's moving you, keep it going. I won't stand your way. Or you could wait till later. You could, you could do little bits of this action. Yeah, lots of different ways. Okay. The healthcare system in the United States leaves a lot to be desired. And so this question, we're starting with Tara. So we have several questions on healthcare. Can it be fixed? What's your position on universal healthcare or Medicare for all? So however you'd like to talk about healthcare in America right now.
Okay, great. Yeah, well, where do I start? First of all, I do support universal Medicare. And no clapping. It's okay. And I feel like if we are a first world country, we are seeing every other first world nation have healthcare provided to them. We are paying so much in taxes. Americans pay more than any other country in healthcare. We have families going bankrupt because they can't afford healthcare. And we're overpaying for prescriptions, for insurance, and for care. All three areas need to be looked at. And why not just give us all Medicare and let us choose our health care what we want? I think it's something that we can all get behind. If we're really a first world country, we need this for our citizens.
Once again, I can't do anything as Secretary of State for Healthcare, but I can use this position as a bully pulpit. I am an activist. I am an advocate. I have been a Hoosier for 43 years, so I've been suffering under GOP supermajority just like most of you. So I can use this position to advocate for what Hoosiers want to have passed and make sure the legislature is listening.
Great. Being a healthcare provider, this one hits home to me. It's actually one of the reasons I decided to run. Right after they passed the big, beautiful bill, yeah, exactly. The next day in practice, I had a patient come in, and she was coming in really just to get some help because she had hurt her back and she couldn't go to work. She wasn't there because she was hurting and she couldn't play with her kids or couldn't spend time with her husband. She was there to get the minimum amount of care necessary to get her back to work so she could make money. And that just really struck me as this system is so upside down and broken that somebody is basically willing to kill themselves to just show up and work. They don't even care about their quality of life and going off to play with their kids. So that just was kind of one of the nails in the coffin for me that motivated me to run was we need universal health care. I'm for Medicare for all. And really quick, Medicare for all will pay for itself because what happens when you stick a bunch of 18 to 30-year-olds who are healthy into that system, you make it more solvent. So as a chiropractor, I would want to bring my knowledge to that fight. So.
As a paramedic that has worked throughout Muncie and then also Blackford, I have taken veterans from the hospital back to their homes to die because they didn't have any health insurance. And they would rather die sacrificing their lives than put their families in medical bankruptcy, which is the #1 form of bankruptcy all across this nation. We are the only developed nation in the world that does not guarantee health care as a human right, but for us it's a profit. It's a for-profit system. We have a profits over people mentality. Our campaign slogan is proudly saying people over profits. And a speed round, I want to explain Medicare for all. Medicare right now does not include dental, vision, or hearing. I, along with Bernie Sanders, wants to include dental, vision, and hearing, and then just lower that age from 65 in a 4-year transitionary program to include everybody else. It's cheaper. We need to have a system that represents all of us and not just the top 1%.
All right, so let's think about Social Security. What's your view and your proposal on Social Security and ensuring its continued solvency for full payouts for this generation of seniors and the next generation? Now, I think this starts with, yeah, okay, Blythe is like, I'll pass on this one. So start.
So right off the bat, the fact that we've already passed the date, we passed it a couple of weeks ago, that if you make over a certain amount of money, you stopped paying your Social Security. So right off the bat, we eliminate that. That goes a long way to making Social Security more solvent. If you make the people, the top 1%, continue to pay into it, get rid of those caps. There's a lot of other ways you can do it, but that's really the first place I would look at starting is right there. And then not only that, but really looking at that top 1%. They have been getting away with murder, and it is time to recoup some of that money from them. They have been taking it from us for the last 40 years, so I would look at increasing their contribution as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So yes, some people that are not here are just saying, oh, well, let's just raise it a little bit. The cap. We need to remove the cap. Make the rich pay their fair share in taxes and have a system that represents us, yet again, not just the top 1%. Because we pay into it all year round. But the top 1%, they hit that cap in January after one paycheck. Make them pay their fair share in taxes, have a system that actually takes care of us. That's one of the most popular policies ever passed in American history was the Social Security Act under FDR. We need to continue that and make sure that people in the younger generations can even have a hope of having that retirement.
All right. Well, I want to talk about an event I went to last week. I am a Boilermaker. Are there any other Boilermakers in the room? All right. It's okay. All right, there's a couple. Okay. All right. Well, I attended an event last week, and I am also a Boilermaker. I have an executive MBA from Purdue, and I also studied in Singapore and Malaysia. And I've also worked in the finance industry. So some of my experience, I think, to tackle and look at this issue of Social Security, we have to look collectively at our national deficit. I don't think it's a Social Security solution alone. I think we have to look about how we're spending across the board. And one of Congress's jobs is to look at and approve budget costs. So looking at Social Security, I feel that there should be a means test on who receives Social Security. But I also think for looking at the overall deficit and reducing it, we have to look at other ways. I think Donald Trump had a good idea with putting DOGE in place and putting controls on government waste, but it wasn't executed correctly. We don't know what Elon was really doing other than stealing data. I think I'm at time, but I do support looking at ways to fund Social Security by using a privatized approach and working with companies that already do wealth management today.
All right, so we'll give a question here to Blythe. What would you do? So you talked about ballot initiatives. What would you do to give Hoosiers the right to voter-led referenda? And we're one of the states where voters can't get things like that on the ballot. And so we can't get to vote directly on issues unless the state legislature put it on there.
So constitutionally, I can do nothing, but I can work with the state legislature to make sure that does get passed. And what I want to do to modernize some of the online systems that the office oversees is put like surveys or things on there. So you can go on, take the survey, and that way we can have feedback on things that need to be fixed. But we could put something like that on there too. We could put a simple survey on there to see how many Hoosiers do want citizen-led ballot initiatives, how many want to get rid of straight ticket voting, how many want to insert something here that the Constitution disallows me from doing as Secretary of State. So, yeah.
All right, so now I have another question for the congressional candidates. What would be your most important specific priority with regard to environmental policy? And this one starting with you, Jackson.
There's so much, I don't have so much time, but I think AOC, Green New Deal, was a great starting point. Now, it didn't pass. We need to pass that and more. We need to make sure that we have a carbon tax on the big fossil fuel industry. And we have to understand that our ecosystems, the environments around the planet, they're not just simply dying. They're being murdered by the big fossil fuel industry, and it's time they pay it back. This is our future. If we want our grandkids, our great-grandchildren to know what winter feels like and not nuclear winter, we need to make sure we're taking care of our environment. Green New Deal, also data centers. For every one ChatGPT response you type in, it's 7 water bottles. We need to make sure that they are completely renewable, and we need to invest that, tax them. Basically, and like nationalize the big fossil fuel industry. They're too dangerous to be kept alive, and we need to go into a completely renewable energy system, saving the planet.
All right, so how to save the environment. So I think that we should incentivize corporations to do the right thing. We know corporations on their own will do what's best for their to save their own dollar. So I think we've seen that time and time again. I think we should incentivize ways that are responsible for energy consumption as far as solar power and other ways. I don't know enough about this topic, but I think if we incentivize companies to be more responsible, I think they will act on it.
Yes. So again, I can't do anything with legislation with this, but I do have a master's in business administration that focused on conscious capitalism, and overseeing the NBIZ website, we can put resources that are free for business owners, business managers, entrepreneurs on how they can have more sustainable businesses. So of course, we want them to be profitable, but we also need to make sure that they're paying attention to the stakeholders, the community, their patrons, the environment, things like that. So give them options instead of buying like bleached white toilet paper, try bamboo or something to offset some of the carbon output that businesses have.
Yeah, and I guess for me, it would start with just kind of starting the EPA back up again, because it really has been defunct for the last year and a half. So that's probably the first place I would start. But then really under the EPA, I would want to see more things like a common sense approach to running that agency. Because yes, you need to protect the environment, but do it in a way where you work with business. Find out where the struggles are there, where you're missing those gaps, bridge those gaps, solve those things so that you can work with the business community to make this work, because then people will actually want to abide by the rules if they make sense. So.
Our next question is about public education. What's your position on public K through 12 education? Speaking about things like vouchers or the Department of Ed or preschool prep. So maybe we could think about how would you set out to improve public K through 12 education? And this one we start with Tara.
Didn't Donald Trump get rid of the Department of Education? Well, I do feel like this is more of a state issue, but I do support public funding going towards K through 12 instead of going to charter schools or vouchers. I don't support that. I think money should go to public schools first. If people want to pay for a private school, great, go pay for it. I couldn't afford that as a mother. I had public education. I feel like I did pretty well. What I would like to see, though, and what Congress could do, is look at covering secondary education, college education for the rest of the United States. I know that is very radical to think that we could possibly educate our population and give everyone a college degree, but that's something that I would support. I think our country is very uneducated, and I definitely support covering and supporting everyone going to college.
I am a very proud K through 12 graduate, public school. I went to Ball State for 4 years. My parents went to public school. My mom went to Muncie Central. And most importantly, one of the ways we fix public education is stop electing politicians that take money from people who support school vouchers. I am the only candidate in this race who is refusing to take those funds. So making sure we're getting that type of money out of politics is one very quick way to fix public education.
So a couple of things on this. First of all, I'm definitely against vouchers and anything that basically pulls money out of the public school system. We picked Carmel when we moved here because of the public school system. You know, it was fantastic public schools, and I think everyone should have access to schools like that. couple things I would like to see changed in schools. Number one, kids shouldn't be hungry trying to learn. So I think having a meal program set up where it's, free, basically free food, free breakfast, free lunch, free whatever. Because if you're hungry, you're not going to learn anything. That's just a fact. And then the other thing is we really need to look at implementing things that are AI proof for kids coming out of school. So really look at trades. As a physician, I'm sitting here going, okay, how can my job be eliminated? So really we need to get AI proof jobs, things like nurses, carpenters, trades, things like that.
I, along with Senator Bernie Sanders, are very passionate about passing the Pay the Teachers Act, because teachers deserve a living wage, as well as funding the educational staff the living wages they deserve too. And as well as what he said, I believe strongly that we need a universal school meal program, because our children cannot learn if they are hungry, as well as, yes, gun reform, because the number one killer of our youth right now is gun violence. So strong unions. I've been on the front lines with the teachers' unions at protests across the state, and making sure that we can pass the PRO Act, the Protect the Right to Organize, and ban the Right to Work for Less laws, so our teachers can have a voice in this system. They are the backbone of this nation, and we need to invest in the future generations as well. FDR once said that the first pillar of a healthy democracy is education. Our education has been crumbling for decades now, and now look at our democracy. Donald Trump is in charge.
This question is for you, Blythe. So if the Secretary of State is chosen by delegates at the Indiana Democratic Convention in the summer, how can we be heard at the convention?
That is an excellent question. So you will have a list of delegates you get to vote for. We are working on putting together a slate of delegates in county by county who plan to support me at the convention. But have these conversations. If you go through the list and you see some of the delegates who you know, call them and ask. Have these conversations with people. This is it's gatekeeping. It's a poll tax. Delegates have to pay to get there. They have to pay to eat. And it really takes away a lot of your voice. So make sure you're vocal about it. If you feel comfortable, follow me on social media, share my posts, ask people to do the same. That way the delegates can see that. And just tell people about how important the primaries are, because I think you guys have over 40 delegates in Delaware County. And that's a good population of delegates. So thank you.
All right. There's so many, guys, you should see this. It's like quite a list of different topics. Let's talk about affordability. So younger people no longer believe in the dream of home ownership. More than ever, they don't believe a college education is affordable. How can we end this, quote, feed the rich economy and restore an economy for all? And I think this is starting with you, Steve, is that correct?
So it's kind of like my favorite question, because it goes right into my number one thing, which is let's tax the billionaires for a change. I mean, we can solve this problem by taxing the rich. I mean, we've gotten into this problem because they spent 40 years taking the money away from us, trickle down. Well, it's time we flip that and go with rise up economics. Let's flood the system from the bottom up. Let's just tax our way out of this. Let's tax the rich. It's simple.
Our generation has lost all hope of ever owning a home, thanks to the 2008 financial crisis, because Wall Street bet against us, right? And it was us working class taxpayers that bailed out Wall Street. I believe after all this time, it's Wall Street's turn to bail out the working class. And then what that looks like, and I mentioned Bernie Sanders a lot, he proposed a lot of bills, taxing Wall Street by 0.1% on bond trades and 0.15% on stock trades between each other. That would be enough money, and within 1 year, to completely wipe out all tuitional debt for more than 45 million Americans. And every subsequent year would go into a public college for all style system. Once in Congress, I'll champion those policies, as well as investing and making sure we build millions of homes, affordable homes, all across this nation. Houselessness should not be a thing in the wealthiest nation in the history of the planet. Having a home is a human right, and we need to guarantee that right in law.
A very smart man once told me that when we're talking about affordability, we have to look at the cost of items versus how much we're making. That's what we're looking at and what we're talking about when we're looking at affordability. What we're seeing is inflation that keeps going up, but our salaries are staying the same. So if our salaries match the rate of inflation, homes will be affordable again. The issue is billionaires and corporate leaders, their salary keeps going up year after year, but the average American worker salary is staying the same. The cost of inflation is going up, and again, we still have minimum wage at $7.50 an hour, $7.25, okay. It's very low. You can't live off that. You can't live off $30,000, $60,000 is even very tough. So we need to raise salaries across the board, and that's how we fix affordability.
So some of how we can do that from Secretary of State's office is just sharing information about candidates and politicians who want to govern in some capacity, so that we know if they have historical bills that have been proposed that harm us, or if they voted to support bills that continue to make prices go up. But also really look into your candidates. People who've lived here and are working class are going to have a better lens on how to govern and how to set policy for the working class. When we continue to elect people in the millionaire and billionaire class, or who are funded by those people, there's a disconnect. It is not a safe bet to have someone writing policy or legislation who has no idea how we live or how much suffering is actually happening on a large scale in Indiana and beyond.
There are some questions here about the U.S.'s role in global politics. We have a couple questions about the war in Iran, whether we believe it's justified, or what's your position on the cost of it. And then we also have a couple questions on the war in Gaza. And so, well, let's start with the war in Iran. And I think, Steve, you started the last one, right? This is you, Jackson.
Just generally, is there?
Okay, so maybe we should do both. Like, let's talk about
I can go both.
the question said you believe it's justified at its start, and another question said, what's your position on the war in Iran costing taxpayers $1 billion?
So
A day, $1 billion. Is that true? Uh-oh, I don't know where I've been. $1 billion a day, I can't even conceive that amount of money.
Yeah, how are we going to pay for it, right? Like, anytime we want, like, healthcare, good education, anything like that, the conservatives, Republicans, even, establishment Democrats, we're like, oh, well, we can't pay for that. That's too expensive. But yet again, the military-industrial complex will bribe our politicians to always send us soldiers like me to go overseas and die in their wars. No, the war in Iran is not justified. It's all for the sake, because our president is blackmailed by Israel in relation to the Epstein files. He's a pedophile. They have dirt on him. We need to make sure we impeach Donald Trump and Pete Kegsbreath, the Department of War Crimes, and send them to The Hague. And no, what is going on in Gaza is not a war, it is a genocide. And we gotta make sure we divest, boycott, and sanction Israel for their terrorist acts, both in Gaza and the settler colonialism in the West Bank. It was our taxpayer money that bombed a girls' school, killing 180 7 to 12-year-old girls. We need to pay reparations for that. That was, AIPAC did that, guys. It was not me. Well, that's why I'm proud to say I'm not bought by AIPAC while I'm talking about that. But, yes, what's going on overseas, instead of investing in bombs to destroy hospitals and schools over there, we need to use that money to build up schools and hospitals over here.
So when I think about our position in global politics, I agree with Jackson. I believe that Gaza and Palestine, that it's just a genocide that's happening over there. We have a war criminal. That's our president right now. Everything he's doing is not justified. He sees our $39 trillion of debt, and what's another $1 billion a day to him? He doesn't care. He doesn't care about it. He's pocketing as much as he can, and when he's out of office, he's going to try to live a nice life. Well, unfortunately, he's going to be impeached, and he's going to have to pay for his crimes. He kidnapped the president of Venezuela. He was talking about invading Greenland, which is still on the table. He bombed a girls' school in Iran. He's a war criminal. I mean, what more is there to say about this? We don't deserve this. I think most of our citizens don't want this, and he needs impeached.
I'm a millennial. I'm 43. So I remember Desert Storm. I was deployed to Operation Iraqi Freedom. We should not have been in Iraq. We should not be in Iran. It is a genocide in Palestine. And I know that's not something Secretary of State governs, but I do think it's important that people know the stances of the people you might be electing. It is important. And I confidently say that because I am also the only candidate not funded by people who also fund millions of dollars into AIPAC. Just because AIPAC doesn't fund or support statewide candidates, the people who fund AIPAC often do. So again, research all of your candidates, know where they're getting their money from, because this will affect future policy and legislation.
So I'm not really sure what else I can say on the Iran war that hasn't already been said, because I essentially agree with everything everybody else here has said. It was an unjustified war. It is costing us, estimated between $1 and $2 billion a day. I mean, just keeping the fighter jets up cost them like $600 million. That's insane. So it's completely unjustified. Now, two things can be true at once. Did a bad leader go away? They did. But should we have been there? No. And now what happens? Because let's face it, with Iraq, once Saddam Hussein was gone, was that a good thing? Yes. What happened after that? Well, at the time I remember thinking, well, that's just a big void. We have no idea. And it didn't end too well. It didn't turn out too well in the end. And that's my fear with Iran as well at this point.
So a couple of the candidates in answering the last question talked about money and taking money from, taking or not taking from various political action committees. One person asks here that Jackson has made his position clear on the funding he will accept. Could you all speak to what kind of funding you are comfortable accepting from your donors? So I think this one starts with Tara. I can't be asked to keep track of this.
All right. Yeah, I was getting nervous. I didn't want other people to think that I'm accepting money from AIPAC. Yeah, I am funding my own campaign. I am fortunate to have a very good career, so I am self-funding my campaign. I welcome anyone who wants to donate to my campaign. I could use the help. I need yard signs. I need to get my message out. So I will accept money from anyone in the district. I will accept money from some corporations if the money is not, like, if they're not expecting me to vote a certain way on a bill. I don't want to owe anybody anything. So I'm comfortable using my own money, but I will take other money.
So I am grassroots and people powered. I will not take money from entities that are anywhere related to AIPAC or things like that. We do have PACs in Indiana, like Better Indiana and Veterans for Indiana. I actually helped found Veterans for Indiana. So there are PACs that aren't the devil, right? And I do have a large dollar donor. I'm sure you may have heard. We had a big conversation before I accepted money from her, because I wanted to make sure that she was supporting me because she was supporting my platform and policy, and not because there was going to be a favor down the line. So large dollar donors, we have those conversations, but most of it, my average dollar donor is $42. I've got donors from all 92 counties in Indiana, and over 1,000 people have donated. So I would love to get money out of politics. I'd love to have caps on how much any candidate, regardless of the level, can take in. I'd love to reform that in some capacity, which I'd be an advocate for as Secretary of State.
And I am just taking small donations. Haven't been approached by any PACs. Have you guys been approached by any PACs? Good, at least I don't feel bad then, because with all the talk, I'm like, oh, gee, is everyone else getting approached by PACs and I'm not, So, was here from a PAC? No, just kidding. So yeah, no, I am just looking for small donations from people that I know and from people that believe in what I'm fighting for.
So politicians who take corporate PAC money and then turn their back on the will of the American people that elected them is nothing short of treason. We all know, no matter how many times the corporation, they are legally required to say, hey, this is no strings attached, nudge, nudge, no attached, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. We all know there are strings attached. So being a grassroots campaign, meaning I will never accept any corporate PAC money, no APAC money, and that's why we've been running for a year and a half to just compete with these establishment candidates that will take like $100,000 and 10 days of announcing their campaign from corporate PACs and not working class people. We need to organize this grassroots coalition, and it's people power over their corporate power. So yes, I encourage all candidates not to take corporate PAC money because, I have yet to see a candidate that is bought out by big health insurance come out and say, oh, the big health insurance companies are murdering our people, which they are. We all know those strings are attached. We need to support grassroots candidates.
Can I add on to that 1 second? The candidates that Jackson's talking about are not here tonight that accepted the 100,000.
They didn't want to show up.
I was like, you weren't addressed. You weren't one of the candidates addressed. She's like, they're not in the room. Okay.
It was like a WWE spotlight, and it was like, a new candidate's entered the ring.
So this is staying on the same theme. So there was a lot of unhappiness expressed about corporate money in politics. And so if elected, what will you do to fight corporate influence or money in politics? Blythe?
Really be an advocate and shine a light on it. Until things got as bad as they've gotten the last year and a half, people really don't always know about the intricacies in politics and how these decisions get made, how candidates get funded, right? You're always told, oh, you have to have money. We have to have money because they've made it that way. We have to have money because our parties have given up on working for the vote. So what I've been doing over the last year, I announced May 14th of last year, but well before then, I was helping all across the state, making sure there are precinct committee people signed up, vice precinct committee people. We've got volunteers. We're going to be doing door knocking. That is part of grassroots. It's not just small dollar donations. It's having these conversations and showing up in these spaces. It's work. It's going to be a lot of work for all of us, and it's not always going to be fun, but it will be worth it. And this is how we can turn the state around. If we are ever going to do it, this is going to be the year to do it, and we really have to pay attention to where that money is coming from to get the money out of it, which sounds backwards, but that's kind of where we are.
Guess this would help. Yeah, basically, I am for just putting in a strict cap on political donations. Going back to whatever it used to be, I forget off the top of my head what it was. I think it used to be around $1,000 or so. But going back to something reasonable like that, to where you just can't go and spend, $100 million and buy a campaign if you want to, like if you're Elon Musk. I think that's wrong, and we need strict limits. Publicly financed campaigns, probably the best way to go. Let's just take money out of it altogether. So.
We need to overturn the disastrous Supreme Court decision Citizens United, which equated money to freedom of speech. Well, if giving money to a candidate is freedom of speech, then whoever's the wealthiest has the loudest voice in democracy. And that's not democracy, that's oligarchy. We got to overturn that, have public funding of elections, ban corporate PACs, special interest groups, and make sure that, our nation is representing all people, not just the donor class.
I agree with everything Jackson just said. Thank you. I know. I do want to add one thing, though. I agree with what everyone is saying up here. I do also support caps. We need a way to make elections more fair for everyone. Right now, with the cost of campaigning, it's a huge barrier for entry for any good candidate. We would have better presidential candidates if there wasn't such a barrier for entry with all the money that's coming from all these super PACs. So I support reasonable cap limits and some kind of just cap on all of that. So thanks.
Okay, so you're all running as Democrats. There is a glaring absence of Republican candidates at both of our last two events. though they had been invited to all four. So you're members of the Democratic Party. What is your opinion on the direction that the Indiana Democratic Party is taking with their platform? And I can, you can make this a little bit more general. What are you thinking about the future? What's the future of the Indiana Democratic Party? What do you think are good moves for the Indiana Democratic Party to take? I don't know.
I think I started last time.
It's harder than it's. You get going.
And you just kind of, you do forget where you are and all that. So, and through all that, what was the question again? Sorry. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so for the thank you. So for the direction of the Democratic Party, I think is really quite simple, is go back to that identity of we are for the working class person. It makes me so ridiculously sick that Republicans have stolen that from us, that they are for the working people. I was raised by a union president. My dad was president of a union for 20 years, worked in that union for over 40, and I am sad to say he is a 3-time Trump voter. And that is devastating to me, and my mom is rolling over in her grave. So I am passionate about saying we need to get back to working class people, because losing people like that to me is absolutely insane.
The future of the Democratic Party looks progressive. 90% of registered Democrats, according to I believe a Gallup poll, someone fact check me, 90% say they are progressive in 2026, all right? And in years before, Blythe mentions this a lot, in the last midterm election, 2022, 60% of registered voters did not vote. That's because they feel politically homeless. We feel like we have two corporate parties not representing working people. That's why we need to have a party for the working class. And, a lot of times, why do people not vote? They know the Republicans are the worst option, right? They feel like the Republicans are going to stab you right in the face. But oftentimes they feel like the Democrats are going to stab you in the back. And it goes back down to money in politics, as most things do. We might catch a theme here. But we need to support grassroots candidates and support a bold vision, a brighter vision for the future, and change the party going forward and drag the party back to the center to working class people.
All right. I'm not sure where I want to take this question, but I do want to share with everyone that I did run for Congress before in 2014. This is not my first time running for office. And the party's a lot different now than where it was, I guess, 10, 14 years ago. And when I ran for office before, it was more of a democracy, and I had a fair chance. I ran in District 4, which was 16 counties, and I heard from every county chair, and I was allowed to speak and give my stand at every county, and it was very fair. And I would say this year has been different. It's not been as equal as I've seen it in the past. I will give kudos to Andrew Dale, keeping things fair. He's a very good leader. I think others in the party can learn from him. But I would just hope that the party would support all candidates, especially supporting democracy, and just make it fair for all candidates that are giving their time to try to make a change. And that's what I would like to see from the party. Thanks.
All right, so I've been to 72 of the 92 counties so far, and I can confidently say there is a huge wave of momentum happening, particularly in our rural communities, which is really exciting. I grew up in a rural community. I live in a rural community. I grew up in a Republican home. My parents, 2 of them, voted 3 times for this. So I know, right? But there's a disconnect with the way that they believe and the way that they vote. And I think there's something similar happening in the Democratic Party, because we've gotten to the point where you have to have money. You got to have this. You got to do it this way. Or nope, this is their turn. This is this person's turn. They are the next one. We're going to shut everyone else out. So, and I'm not saying we eliminate that, but we need to find a way to work together. And I do think we are getting there. I really do. I think we are evolving. I think there's a lot of grassroots momentum, but I also think that this year, the primaries and the convention are going to determine whether or not we have a viable Democratic Party in the future.
Somebody really wants to know whether you would vote to replace Hakeem Jeffries for House Leader.
Absolutely. We need leaders that have, a spine that can actually stand up against this regime. And, I'll hand it off. I'll be brief. A week before the illegal war in Iran started, Ro Khanna, congressperson out of California, brought up the War Powers Resolution to say preemptively, hey, we're amassing a fleet in the Persian Gulf right now. Let's not attack Iran until they get congressional approval. Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer wouldn't even have a vote on it. They denied it in committee, and that's weak leadership. Guess what? Both of them bought by AIPAC and large corporate donors, the military-industrial complex. It's time for a change. It's time for new progressive leadership.
I agree. We need to hold all leaders accountable, and Trump's cabinet needs to be impeached as well. Everyone needs to pay for their crimes.
I wouldn't get to vote, but yes.
Well, considering I'm a chiropractor, I think I'm a little annoyed that you stole my spine line that I like to use. All right, well, you're adjacent, but all right, no, but yeah, I would also be a no on that vote too. So.
Legalization, decriminalization of marijuana. Do you think we should legalize it, medical or recreational, or even decriminalize it, or just decriminalize it? And how should the tax dollars be spent if we legalize it? Okay, basically, are we going to legalize it, and where would we spend those tax dollars? And I think this starts with Tara.
So I support legalizing marijuana. America has the most people in prison per capita than any other country. It's ridiculous. This is so easy. We definitely need to legalize marijuana. No one's getting hurt by anyone using marijuana or CBD. So I support legalizing it across the board.
I support legalizing it. Obviously, I can't vote for that. However, with the ballot book, if we have information about legislation that's put forth, or once we finally get citizen-led ballot initiatives, if that's something that goes on the ballot, we can give you information on the pros, the cons, the sources for the pros and cons, so that you have really thorough information before you go and vote for something like that. And even if the legislature is doing that, the Secretary of State's office can provide that information as well. That way you're not trying to read through a million other things. We're not trying to rely on organizations which are great, like Muncie Resists. But our 501c4s could be better used elsewhere, and not trying to dissect the pros and cons of things, and not just taking the word of our legislators for it, legislators.
So I also agree. I would be for fully legalizing. Rolling it out might be a little difficult because most states that have fully legalized cannabis have already had medical. So they've already had clinics and a distribution setup. So they've had something to work with. We'd be starting from zero. So I think we would need to start with a medical program first, and then immediately then on the heels of that being successful, roll out recreational as well, because we're losing just an insane amount of tax dollars to every state around us, beyond everything else everyone's mentioned about, people in jail needlessly, people that really could benefit from this medicine not being able to get it. It would be a huge benefit, I think, to Hoosiers to have it legalized.
We need to legalize cannabis. According to Ball State, our very own, 87% of Hoosiers want to legalize cannabis. Why is it not legalized in this state? Oh, I wonder if it has anything to do with Eli Lilly being headquarters in Indianapolis and lobbying our politicians. Having cannabis illegal is the byproduct of having a racist, for decades, a racist administration, because black people and white people smoke cannabis at the same rate, for example, but black people are 4 times more likely to get incarcerated for the same crime. We live under new Jim Crow. We need to make sure we fix the injustice system that is across this country, and I would use that taxpayer money to have universal daycare all across this country.
would you stand up for immigrants, trans people, and other marginalized communities?
I already stand up for them. I will continue to do so, but mostly listen to them. Let's hear their opinion. When legislation is being put forth with the LGBTQ plus community, we need to be listening to the people it affects the most, not mostly white men making the laws. But I'm also open to hearing feedback on that, because as Secretary of State, I want to make sure everyone has equal access to things and has their input and their voices heard. But I also know I don't have all the answers, so tell me.
Yeah, I believe really in supporting rights, listening to folks, as Blythe just mentioned, and really just trying to find out where are they at, what kind of support do they need. I think we live in a world where people are so quick to be judgmental and hateful that just simply knowing that you have a place that they have a place they can go to and be supported and not judged. I think that, from a party standpoint, is very important. As far as a candidate goes, that's kind of my viewpoint on it, is we need to support those folks and help them as best we can.
Of course, listen to what they said, but as far as policies that we can do, I'm in favor of passing the Equal Rights Amendment. We have a rogue Supreme Court that just got rid of women's rights. We need to codify Obergefell, to codify the Equal Rights Amendment. Human rights should be off the table.
I also support LGBTQ rights. I attend Pride. I have many friends in the community. I want everyone who's marginalized to feel safe in our communities, and I don't support any laws that puts anyone in jeopardy. I also, for immigration reform is something that's very near to me. As we're watching the news every day, we see how immigrants are treated in democratic communities across the United States. We're seeing stuff happening in Minneapolis and LA. They're trying to hide that from us now. This has been going on all year, and you're not seeing it as much on social media or the news, but it's still happening, and immigrants are being kidnapped, they're being beaten, they're being killed in our streets, and citizens as well. And I think that what Trump is doing and this administration is criminally wrong and is treasonous to the United States of America. When he said he would show Chicago what war is, he was declaring war on the United States. He needs to pay for that. Additionally, I feel like immigration reform is something that's easy to tackle. Instead of punishing immigrants, we need to support them and have a better path for citizenship that's not too expensive, it doesn't take too long. We know who the felons are, and most of them are not. We need to support them.
Okay, Victoria Sparks has name recognition, money, an existing base. What is your actual path to beating her? Not in theory, but county by county. So this, that's a good question. But you, so, all right, got it?
Yeah,
go.
Easy. So quite simply, I use her own record and her own words against her. Just every breath out of my mouth will be that. Just use her own words against her. She's got a horrible record. She loves to have some horrible viral moments out there. So just wait for those, pounce on them, and just go. And really the best thing to do is people can't stand her. And Republicans, I've met a number of Republicans that can't stand her. Heck, our first event that we had here a couple of months ago, my person that went to represent me, because I couldn't go, was my former next door neighbor. She's a Republican. She actually marched with Victoria Sparks a couple of years ago. Can't stand her anymore. So I am running to the middle so I can pick up those Republicans that are dissatisfied with her, and independents, as well as, of course, Democrats that can't stand her either.
I've already been winning back Republicans by being a proud grassroots populist, because guess what? I'm not just fighting for blue team health care. I'm fighting for everybody's health care. I'm fighting for make sure that your representative is not beholden by large special interest. Victoria Sparks is a boogeyman, all right? She's nationally well known as saying criminals do not deserve due process, breaking the Constitution. And this is what I say about her, right? She's an oxymoron, all right? She's a moron too. But she's a Ukrainian that doesn't support Ukraine. She's an immigrant that doesn't support immigrants' rights. And she's a woman that doesn't support women's rights. But something that does make sense is that she's a millionaire that does anything in the best interest of other millionaires and billionaires, also known as her large corporate donors. That's why we're organizing a grassroots, people-powered movement and reflecting the needs and wants of the working class, not the Epstein class. Of course. And that's how we're going to win.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Jackson and Steve said. No, that's the easy way. But no, I feel like Trump is also making it easier. As I'm going around talking to everyone in the district, I'm hearing from a lot of Republicans that they're really upset with Trump, and they're going to vote whoever does not support Trump. So I do expect to see a blue wave this year.
I'm not running against Victoria Spartz, but can we stop pretending that Hoosiers are too stupid to pay attention and be objective? Because what has name recognition and money and following gotten us right where we are on both sides of the aisle? Stop pretending that we can't do a little bit of research and be objective, and that people who know what it feels like to be on the receiving end of this can fix it, all right? And also, yes, we want enlightened Republicans to be voting for us, but we're also talking to the non-voters. The largest voting class in Indiana are the people who are registered to vote and don't vote, and the people who are eligible to vote but refuse to. So we need to be having, and that is harder because there's no data. There's no data. That's fine. We have to have these conversations because those are the people who've given up on us. Those are the people who do not feel represented. They have not felt heard, and they have completely given up on the easiest way to protest and then voting.
We've heard a lot of progressive values articulated this evening. If progressive Democratic candidates don't make it through the primary and they're not on the ballot in November, will you urge Democrats to vote for the Democratic candidates who are on the ticket rather than opt out of voting and risk ceding the election to Republicans? Jackson.
Yes, we've all been on the record on saying the other side are literally fascist. And that's not name calling, that's textbook. That's historical fascism. They're literally making concentration camps. So by the end of the day, let's say a corporatist wins this primary. It doesn't mean I'm endorsing everything they're saying. It's saying like, hey, Victoria Spartz has got to go. Am I endorsing, let's say there's a pro-genocide candidate in this primary, do your research, but we got to make sure, I'm not endorsing that, I'm endorsing, it's basically, in the primary, vote for your hopes, and the general, vote against your fears. But if you vote progressive, you can vote for your hopes in the general, so make sure you're doing your research and getting involved and get your friends involved as well, then we don't have to worry about that.
Question. Oh, yeah. Well, I support a Democrat. Yes. Whoever wins the primary, I absolutely will support them because we need Trump out of office. That's my number one.
Yes, with an asterisk. And I want to say progressive is not a bad word. Progress is a cell phone. Progress is this microphone and this being live streamed. It's running water and indoor plumbing. Okay? It is women's rights. So I'm tired of corporate Democrats saying progressives are bad. But yeah, I would support the Democrats, but I will also hold them accountable as I expect to be held accountable. I am tired. I hate it when people are like, oh, you're negative or you're petty. Stating facts and holding people to account for their actions or inactions or where their money comes from is not negative. It is holding them accountable because all of that got us here. So progressives get a bad rap because we are vocal about that, but not being vocal and not holding people accountable. And that doesn't mean we don't like each other. Doesn't mean we hate each other. We still have to stand on some values because, as Jackson said, human rights and civil rights are non-negotiable.
So this is an easy one to answer because we've all gotten away so many times of saying, well, just what everybody else said. Well, that is true because we are all just different shades of blue up here. So yes, can I support any one of my opponents that wins? 100%, because at the end of the day, they're fighting red. And so yes, I am on Team Blue, all while still thinking in my own head, really, it's still the 99% of us against that top 1%. So I will 100% support that candidate because, yes, we are all just different shades of blue.
So that gives me a little follow-up question, though. Why vote for any one of you in particular, then, instead of you, or you? Why should people cast their delegate votes for you rather than Bo Bai? So even though you would support people later, why you now? And I think that starts with Tara, right?
All right. Well, I feel like I bring a lot of corporate and government leadership experience to the table. I've been working at the state of Indiana. I've worked with the federal government for 6 years when I worked at Department of Child Services. And so I have experience working with the government directly. I'm also very passionate. I have an education from Purdue from an MBA perspective. I have a lot of just experience with leadership in general. So I feel like that sets me apart. I don't know, I'm just very passionate and want to get Trump out of office.
I have experience that is very, very relevant to this job. I have an MBA. I've been a user of the NBIS services and the Secretary of State's website for years as an actual person who has to use it legally. So I know the holes that are there. I know what can be fixed. I'm also the only one in this race who's at risk of losing her right to vote. And I'm tired of men overseeing this office when it's my rights that are always on the chopping block. And I didn't get into this race, thank you. I didn't get into this race because a poll said, oh, they know your name, or I have money, or it was just expected. I am here because I know I can do this job. I have an amazing comprehensive platform, which by the way is on my website, blythepotter.com, and you can put feedback if you think that there's something that needs to be added to it. I have actual policies. I have a plan. A real plan. This is not a stepping stone. I will not vacate this office to go do anything else in 2 years. I'm qualified for this.
So at the end of the day, I'm a small business owner, I'm a chiropractor, and I've also led a few different sales teams over my time. So quite simply, my plan is to get into Congress and to make friends and to get stuff done that way, because the first thing I plan on doing is getting a chiropractic license in DC. I'll move my table into my congressional office, and you know what's gonna happen? Give it a week or two, and other Congress people are gonna come up to me saying, you know, my neck's kind of bothering me, or my low back, because that happens to me every day. It probably happened before we leave here tonight. But what I can say to them is, hey, come on back down to my office and I'll take care of you. And I'm gonna make friends that way so that later when I need votes, when I need help getting some of our more progressive agenda across the finish line, I can go back to that person and say, hey, remember when you couldn't walk and I helped you? Let's return the favor. So I wanna go there and make friends, even though I can't stand most of those people when I see them on TV.
What sets me apart is that I've been on the front lines. I'm a committed, lifelong activist. I would say I'm the most passionate about our policies. We have the most extensive policy platform, perhaps in the state, I might reckon. There's like 20 policies and it's expanding. I'm a nut for this kind of stuff, all right? I'm very passionate about, I've seen the worst case scenario of this system failing us. I know people that have died because of this current political system. If you want someone that will unapologetically fight for your rights day in and day out, and to be frank, I'm not going there to just make friends. I'm going there to represent the 5th District. And sometimes the fascists need their butt kicked. Sometimes they need a fighter in Congress and to get the people's agenda done, because that's what their job is of a congressperson. So if you want women's rights protected, trans rights, Medicare for all, get money out of politics, and everything that we've talked about here tonight, then support us by going to JacksonFranklinForCongress.com and vote progressive on May 5th.
So before I turn it over to the candidates for their closing statements, just a couple things. We still have some of those beautiful, we love our immigrant neighbor, wait, is that what it says? We stand with immigrant families posters. We ask for a donation of $5, a suggested donation. Thank you all of you, for participating in today's events, including those who are watching from home. And I want to give a big thank you to our candidates. It takes a lot to run for office, so thank you for participating in our democracy in this way. All right, so I think Blythe, you will go first. Each candidate will have 1 minute for their final statement. And one more note, you can go to our website, muncieresist.org, to read candidates' responses to our questionnaires and learn more about other things that are coming up. And Muncie Resist will be releasing its endorsements shortly. All right.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for engaging in politics. We all would probably rather be scrolling or watching Netflix or something enjoyable, but politics can be fun, and it's always really encouraging to see more and more people engaging. Please have these conversations with your friends. Make sure people are registered to vote. Update your registration. Check your registration before April 6th. Make a plan to vote between April 7th and May 5th. Talk to people. If they complain about something that's happening that is directly related to politics, make sure that they are making a plan to vote too. Go out and check my website, blythepotter.com. Talk to your delegates. Make sure you vote in the primary. If you're a delegate, please chat with me. I really would love to have a conversation with you. And I hope that you will elect me as your Secretary of State. I have organizational leadership skills. I've managed people. I've managed organizations. I've led people in the military. So this is right up my alley.
Well, thank you guys for having me out here tonight. This has been a lot of fun. Really, I just want to go to Congress and make a difference. Yes, do I want to go there and make friends? I do, but that is my Trojan horse approach. And we all know what happens once you get your Trojan horse in there. That's when the real fight happens. So that truly is my goal, get in there, make some friends, but then also not be afraid to fight them when the time comes, because that will have to happen for sure. So thank you for reminding me of that. But at the end of the day, like I said, at the end of the day, I'm frustrated. I want to go in there and make a difference, and I want to go fight for Hoosiers because I'm sick and tired of being represented by somebody like Victoria Spartz and having someone like Trump bullying the rest of us. So I want to go and fight that system, and I want to go represent you and take that fight right to them. Thanks.
We need a brighter vision for the future. If you feel like you've been left behind by this current political system, and you have, then join our campaign. If you've been waiting for a movement that will never sell you out to big corporations, won't send your sons and daughters to die in a foreign war because they're lobbied by AIPAC, and will shut down unions, or won't shut down unions, of course, then this is the movement you've been waiting for. This is the time we take back power from the billionaire oligarchs that have had their boot on our necks for decades and decades, since basically Reagan and past, right? This campaign is the direct continuation of the political revolution set off by Bernie Sanders. And if you care about human rights, you will support our campaign, and we won't only win these coming elections, we will create a system that places people over profits. Thank you, guys.
All right. Well, I want to leave you and just, first of all, thank you all for coming out, as Blythe said. I'm sure we would all be doing something more fun tonight, but we appreciate you coming out and supporting and listening to the candidates and what we all have to say. I hope that you'll support me just because of my leadership experience, and I do also have experience with business transformation, which is exactly what we need in DC right now. I also will represent the people of District 5, and I am definitely going to impeach Donald Trump. I hope you remember that. And if you want to find out more about me, please visit my website. It's taranelsoncongress.com. Thank you.
All right, thank you all. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, guys.
Yes, take one.
Did I lose you? Did I lose you?